Chapter 23. Kaci had nearly reached her salvation just as the creature closed in on her. Panic washed over her in suffocating waves. This is it. The way you die. The virus seemed gleeful in her mind, pecking at her like a flock of hungry ravens. But even though her brain commanded her to lie there and let her horrible death happen, she refused. Instead, she continued to move stealthily toward the injectors on the desk. And then suddenly, they were in reach. She stood, grasping two of them by the handles, and pointed the sharp tips at the beast. "Back!" she ordered, her voice wavering. Its dark gaze slid to the weapon, and an angry hiss escaped its sharp teeth.
"You dare to threaten your mail?"
Her grip was slick on the hilt of her last defense, but she had to believe the weapon was as effective against these monsters as Seer had promised. "You're not my mail. I already have a mail. Besides, I'm a human woman, and God damn it, you better be scared." The words rang through her with a truth that made every muscle in her body tense.
"Scared?
It froze, studying her.
Of thin flesh stretched over fragile bones? I think not."
Fragile? Me? Something grew cold inside her. "Clearly, you aren't familiar with my species, because if you think you're going to take a single one of us, you haven't met a human before. We'll destroy you. We'll make you beg for mercy, and then we won't give it to you. So you want to know if you should be scared? You should be terrified." Anger, like nothing she had known before, uncoiled inside her and seized her. She took a step toward the monster, and he quickly took one back. Pointing one of the oversized syringes at him, she threw the other over her shoulder like a baseball bat.
"I don't believe you."
It said arrogantly, but there was a hint of doubt in its voice. "You want to know how we creatures with thin flesh and fragile bones have dominated every species on their planet, you alien bastard? Do you really want to know? Because we are smart and merciless, and we're usually at our best when we get backed in a corner." Its gaze flickered from her to the corner.
"We will take every female for our own."
"You can damn well try," she screamed, a sound like a banshee, then charged it at full speed. The Bortrak stumbled back into a med station and flipped over onto its back. She knew she should run, but she also knew it would chase her. And like the virus that seemed to haunt her days and nights, she wanted to end this here and now. She was tired of being afraid. As fast as she could move, she jumped onto the table and then down on top of the beast, slamming the injector into its neck. The creature's eyes widened as she straddled its chest, pressing all her weight onto the weapon. And then, after a tense moment, the monster chuckled.
"This is your human fury? A tiny prick?"
Fear struck her. It didn't work. She raised the other injector, but the Bortrak knocked it easily from her grip. Then it rolled on top of her, crushing her.
"You go to my ship, now."
She gasped, trying to breathe, but she couldn't pull in air. Punching out at the Bortrak, she hit the injector still sticking from its neck. The weapon hissed softly, and the Bortrak grabbed her arm and yanked it to the side. Her bones snapped and her vision went black. Pain exploded within her. A second later, the monster slid off her and fell to the floor. Gasping in deep breaths, she sobbed, her vision white and then coming slowly back into focus. She wanted to move her arm, to alleviate the pain, but somehow knew moving it would only make things worse. At last, she looked at the Bortrak through her tears. Its face was frozen, the life gone from its eyes. Sobbing again, but this time in relief, she dragged her broken arm onto her chest, cradling it as the tears slipped down her cheeks. The floor was hard and cold beneath her, and her body was slick with sweat. But she was alive. It took forever to force herself to rise. Black and white streaks flashed in her vision every time she jostled her arm. But she needed to keep going. She needed to lead the women. Perhaps they would fight on their own, but she couldn't take that risk. If she did, it might cost all of them their lives, and Seer might execute his suicidal plan before I can help. She struggled to her feet, gritting her teeth, then stared down at the unused injector tossed on the floor close to them. Nausea rolled up her throat as she bent down to pick it up. Leaning against the nearby table, she steadied herself until the world stopped rocking. When she pushed away from the table, she turned the injector over in her hand. There, on the side, a simple silver button stared back at her. Inject it and push the damn button. Need to talk to Seer about his instructions. Later. But right now, the docking bay. But first, she said to herself, I'm not going to get anywhere if I don't bind this arm. If only I knew how to work these healing beds. Using a pair of medical scissors, she sliced off the bottom of her long dress. The task was awkward and painful with her bad arm, but at last she managed it. Then, just as carefully, she tied the long piece of blue fabric into a sling, put it over her head, and slid her arm into it. Not great, but better. Almost drunkenly, she stumbled toward the door, the ground shifting with each tiny jostle of her arm. She bit back a sob of protest as she reached the door, then jumped, triggering it to open. The jolt of impact had her curling over her arm in shocked pain. But she let herself pause for only a moment. Moving on, she headed down the hall. When she hit the door to the elevator, the button stayed dark. She pressed her ear to the doors. Damn it. Broken. Scanning the hall, she saw a metal door with a handle. A small picture showed an image of stairs. That will work. Thankfully, the handle turned without issue, and she opened it into a stairwell. The red lights flashed even brighter, which made it easy to see as she started down the steps. 3 floors down from us, she reminded herself. The combination of stabbing pain and a roaring throb made her movements feel more that of a woman in a dream. No, a nightmare. She moved, barely feeling her feet. Her good hand awkwardly slid along the banister, with the injector loosely gripped, as she wound farther and farther down. It was in that way that she didn't see the board track until it was upon her. She turned, not knowing how she'd find the strength to climb the stairs, but it caught her by the waist. Slamming her broken arm into the wall, it hissed into her ear.
Mine.
Why does every alien think I'm his? But then her thoughts stopped as her vision blackened once more. The air in her lungs slid in and out like broken glass. Tears freely fell down her cheeks as she tried to fight, thought the haze of pain. At her side, the second injector lay trapped by its big body. If she could only reach it. Her thumb searched out the silver button. She used the slight lessening of its body pressure as her chance. Spinning, she slammed the injector into its chest. I'm too short. I missed its neck. The tip scarcely penetrated its shell. Her eyes widened and she released the injector, her gaze traveling up to meet the creature's eyes. They narrowed in rage.
Mistake.
It growled. And that mistake that will cost me my life.